everyone. I'm Kyung-taek Lee, Head of Cash in New York office. Thank you for joining today for New York Korean Finance Forum. This forum is an event organized by Korea Investment Corporation and Consulate General of the Republic of Korea to share investment ideas and trends in various asset classes, such as equities, fixed income, and alternative investment. But today, we are very pleased to expand our topics beyond investment and deliver more important messages to a broader audience, including students here in New York City. This would not have been possible without the Korea Society co-hosting this event, so I'm very grateful. This time, we invited Mr. Shin Soonkyu to share his thought on living a balanced life in this competitive capitalistic society. I believe balance is necessary not only to avoid falling down the street, but also to avoid falling an important threshold in life. So I'm very thankful for Mr. Shin to come out today and provide an opportunity to ponder on this subject. So for a brief introduction, Mr. Shin was born in Seoul and came to the United States alone at the age of 15 to study at the Overbrook School for the Blind. He later moved to a regular high school and graduated from the Harvard with a major in psychology. He was a PhD candidate at MIT and is a CFA chart holder. I think it's first time as a blind person. He started his investment career at JP Morgan in 1994 as a credit analyst. Since 1998, he has been working as a research analyst at BBH. So next year will mark his 30 years anniversary on Wall Street. So he serves as the board chair of YANA, the You Are Not Alone Ministry, or not-for-profit organization committed to helping orphaned and abandoned children. He's also a semi-professional writer with 2 published books. And of course, he was on New Kids, one of the most popular talk show in Korea. So with that, please welcome Mr. Shin Soonkyu with big applause.
I'm so glad to be here with you this morning. Are we going to do the video or no?
Yeah, video is on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'll just wait. Okay, thank you. 처음에 이제 그런 거를 시각장애인과 일을 해본 적이 없는 사람들이라 그 코퍼레이트 파이낸스 쪽에서 일을 하시는 분들하고 얘기를 할 때는 굉장히 이게 그 감이 안 잡히는 거죠. 이분들이 자기네는 다 이렇게 그 읽으면서 자료를 눈으로 읽고 훑고 그래프를 보고 그렇게 일을 하잖아요. 그러니까 상상이 안 가는 거예요. 그분들이 너 어떻게 이런 일을 하려고 그러냐. 기차 안에서 너무 덥고. 이제 볼게요.
일찍 와.
일찍은 뭐다?
일찍 와.
오늘 저기 펑션이 있어.
진짜?
7살 때 망막방이가 와서 복합적인 이유로 수술도 많이 해봤지만 결국은 9살 때, 만 9살 때 시력을 다 잃었어요. 그러니까
SK and I have worked together for 14 years now. I think he's very professional, very well spoken, a very good writer, excellent in mathematics and analyzing. God has gifted him with amazing talents.
피아노를 친다는 것 때문에 그 외국 선교사님 눈에 띄어서 미국에 14살 되기 조금 전에 그 미국에 이제 그 펀드레이싱 투어를 왔어요. 기적처럼 느껴졌고 4년 동안 고등학교 공부하면서 그 집에 살았고 그 진짜 부모님처럼 대했고 그분들 저를 자식처럼 대해주시고 지금도 그래요. 6,400명 학생? 시각장애인이 3명인가 될 거가 없었어요.
아니 뭐 살려면 좀 살 수 있는데.
지금 결혼한 지 21년째가 됐는데 저는 거의 되어 있는 사람, 완성된 사람을 만난 거거든요. 이렇게 진짜 이 사람이 장애인인가? 하는 정도를 잘 못 느꼈어요. 그러다가 가끔가다 저도 잊어버려서 여보 뭐 저기 빨간색 갖고 와 이렇게 부탁을 할 정도로 그만. 클린 앞에. 너무 지저분하다 여기. 뭐 좀 먹을래? 귤 먹을래?
야나 미니스트리는 그 YNA가 You are not alone의 앞글자를 딴 거예요. 그래서 야나, 그 You are not alone, 혼자가 아니다. 우리 한국에 있는 소외된 아이들에게, 가난한 아이들에게, 또 부모가 없는 아이들이나 부모한테 버림받은 아이들에게 혼자가 아니다라는 메시지를 전하고 싶어서 저희가 같이 시작된 단체인데요.
저희는 그렇게 대화를 하거든요. 그러니까 그게 아니고요. 주인이 없는 거예요.
엄마 핸드폰 잊어버렸어. 어떡하지? 들어가자. 아니 그 사람들 다 있어?
유학의 그런 그 목적도 있지만 이 보육원 아이들을 데리고 와서 일반 가정에서 호스팅을 하면서 그 가정에서 그 성장하는 그런 그 기회를 주는 거죠.
This is Wall Street.
또 미국이란 나라가 참 희한한 나라예요. 외국에서 와서 한 사람이 노력, 그 다음에 기회, 어느 정도까지의 그런 그 사회에 진출을 할 수 있고 어느 정도 삶을 꾸려갈 수 있는 그 기회가 공평하게 있는 나라가 드문 것 같아요. 그 불공평함을 줄여가면서 더 좀 공평한 쪽으로 다가갈 수 있는 그런 기회가 누구한테나 주어지는 나라인 것 같아요.
Authorities announced Sunday that they arrested a naturalized immigrant from South Korea for helping North Korea evade United Nations sanctions. Jen Han-choi, described by the police as loyal agent of North Korea, was allegedly being called for Pyongyang. The police became aware of Mr.
Okay, great. Well, as I've been introduced, I've been on the professional level focusing on investing clients' assets into securities to obtain better than average returns. That has been my professional work for nearly 30 years. But just as long, maybe even longer, I've been thinking about how we live, how we invest our heart, our efforts, our focus to become the best self that we can be and to help others to become best selves that they can be. So in terms of slides here, I like you to look at the disclaimer. This is a disclaimer that my employer's lawyers insist on. And I'm not here as a representative of my employer today. And nothing I say has anything to do with them. They said I can say that I work for Brown Brothers Harriman. That's about all I can say about that. The next slide is a brief sketch of who I am. I think we talked about a lot of this. The only thing that I would point out is that I've been married for 27 years. 2 college-age children. My son just went to college, so we are out of the business of caring for children day in and day out. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Next slide. I want to talk about balance a bit here because, people, when they find out, when they meet me or read about me or that kind of thing, people are amazed about a lot of things. But the thing that they're most amazed about, especially those who live in New York City or suburbs of New York City, is the fact that I commute on my own. Commuting from northern New Jersey to Wall Street is not a trivial challenge for anybody, for that matter. If I'm lucky, 90-minute one way. Used to be every day. Now it's 3 days a week. And what makes it tougher is that things can be, I wouldn't say dangerous. You're faced with unexpected situations. Sometimes, I don't know, New York City streets, they're forever working on those streets. They're, in front of my building, office building that is, this construction has been going on for I don't know how long, for years. They're still doing it. And so uneven streets, stairs, I used to, not anymore, but I used to run a lot to catch the next train real quick. And, escalators, again, people get really nervous about escalators when I'm about to get on it. My issue is not the escalators themselves, but people grab you, that I'm about to step on it, do a pretty good job, been doing it for years and years, and they grab me, and that kind of sometimes gets, throws my balance off. And all that commuting, I fell once, back in maybe 2018, 2019. I fell down maybe a stairs of 5 or 6 steps, and I didn't know then, I was on the way home. I guess there was a bit of a bruise, and I bled a bit, I guess. I didn't know about it. When I got to the station where my wife picks me up, she screamed. She was like freaking out, like, "What did you do?" And she was so upset that I had actually gotten hurt. And I said, "Gee, with that kind of reaction, I should probably get hurt more often." And she was really nice to me that day. This balance issue has been something that I've been thinking about for a long time. As you just heard, I published 2 books in Korean essay collections. The next book, I've been trying to make it about balance, life's balance, professional balance, society's balance, personal balance. And this is the first time I'm actually sharing this idea with anybody. Hopefully that book will come out next year. But this is the first time. And the first confusion about balance that I can recall is when I came to the United States. As you heard, 15 years old, I came here to study on my own. Now, before then, any of you, I don't know, there's some students out there too. Some of you grew up in Korea maybe in the 1960s, 70s, that time frame. At that time, we were taught that you are the least important person, least important factor in society. We were taught to value country above all things. The country, 애국가. The anthem, we call it 애국가. That's like country, loving the country song. Every day, I think it was at 5 o'clock, when the people stopped and they actually did a pledge, I guess, pledge to the flag. But if the country was the most important thing, we were also taught that the group was also very important. When I was in Korea, I attended a school for the blind. One of the things that we learned was to navigate. It's called orientation and mobility. They teach you how to use your cane, how to get around by yourself. See, in the U.S., that lesson is taught one-to-one. In Korea, that was taught one on maybe dozen students. One teacher, maybe dozen students. And I was always placed in the middle of the group. I don't know why that is, but what I was told was if something happens to the group, I would be blamed because I was the one in the center of the group. So I had to keep the group together. Again, the message was very clear. Group was more important than I was. That was the value system. And, you know, back then, teachers were gods. I mean, especially in a school for the blind like the one I attended, teachers were everything. And they not only taught, but they trained us to be good people. You know, one of the things that I argued about was that blind kids don't go to military. So these teachers should be absolutely obeyed. And, you know, if they beat you, they beat you. Did a lot of that. And if one kid messed up, all of us got punished. Again, the message was very clear. The group was more important than you. When I came to the US, things were weird. You know, in Korea, again, the value system was very clear. But in the US, what I was told was, no, you're the most important thing in your life. You should value yourself above everything else. This individualistic idea was new to me. And one of the teachers said I should join the choir. And I said, you don't want me to join the choir. I'm a bad singer. And she's like, no, we need more choir members. And I said, you really don't want me to do that. But she made me join the choir. And when I told this story to other teachers, like, what do you mean? You didn't have to join the choir. I mean, you don't want to don't bother. Why bother? And another thing that was amazing about coming to U.S. to study was they said, well, in Korea, you know, you're supposed to be a good person, nice to everybody, and you should get along with everybody for students in your school. So you should be always getting along, try to get along. Another message I was given in the U.S. school was, no, if you don't like somebody, don't bother. No need to get along with every student that you come across. So I was really confused by it. And another thing that was confusing, of course, was about academics and school activities. You know, in Korea, it was teachers, my parents, my mother in particular, studying was the most important thing. And going to college was the most important thing. And since back then, one score, test score, determined where you went to college, that was the most all-encompassing focus of your life until you get to college. Got to America, and they're like, yeah, I mean, good student is a good thing, but that's not the most important thing. You know, the big word that people threw about back then was well-roundedness. Individuals should be well-rounded. And, you know, academic is one of them. It's not the most important thing, just one of them. So we were taught to not just focus on schoolwork, but do other things, you know, in high school. So because of that, I did participate in a lot of activities in my high school. You know, I was part of musical groups, and I was involved heavily with the student government. A lot of competitions. It was no athletics, though. I'm not no athlete. So a lot of academic competitions. And, you know, I was encouraged to keep on playing the piano, that kind of a thing. And even this idea about your job in high school was to get to the best college you can. That wasn't missing in the message in the messaging system in the school where I went. So it was a confusing time. What's what's important? Because I was taught one thing in one country, I was taught another thing in a different country. So I think that's where sort of my idea about keeping balance started. And so, now the situation that we find ourselves in, I think a lot about this pendulum idea. The pendulum used to be on one side, and it swung to on the opposite side, and that's where a lot of things seem to be these days. So, for example, in Korea, who would have known that, maybe 40 years later, from my childhood, that is, things have swung so far to the other side. Self is the most important. In Korea, now teachers no longer get that kind of respect or the authority. In America, again, I was taught that you don't have to like everybody. Now we're taught, no, you should, if you can't like somebody, you should at least respect everybody, no matter how different you might be. It's no longer liking and respecting is the that's the more of the imperative, not as individualistic as it used to be. Ironically enough, now getting into the best colleges in America has become more of an important thing. I don't know why. I think what it is about is that this whole competitiveness has gone up a lot, and one thing that people realize is that if you graduate from best colleges, you have better chances in life, read money, earning potential, and in a capitalist society that matters a lot. So that has become a big deal. Do you know that in places like Northern California, Palo Alto, for example, teenage suicides has become a big problem? It was not like that in the 1980s when I was going to college. And this last thing, it's really, really sad. In both countries, attacking other people have become the norm, the commonplace. When I came to the US, I really became very enamored by the political system in the United States, the elections, the peaceful transfer of power. And in the 1990s, when I was going to college, when I began to pay attention to such things, the normal idea was we do not do negative campaigning. We talk about ourselves, who we are, what we stand for, what policies we will emphasize and try to adopt. We don't talk about the other guy. We don't especially talk about the other guy's bad points, so as to insist that we are better. Now, negative campaigning is not even a topic of discussion. That's what campaigning has become. And Korea is about the same thing. So today's reality that I wanted to just focus on, a few things, is this. You all of you live this, I think. We are still very much focused on the individual. And the reality of things is that for most families, one income no longer is sufficient to support everybody in the family. And because of that kind of competitiveness, economic-driven focus on life, less people get married. Birth rates are declining, not just here in the U.S. Actually, in the U.S., it's a bit different story, isn't it? But in Korea, in other Asian countries, where competitiveness is really intense, birth rates are declining very fast. Korea has the lowest birth rate among OECD countries, which means probably anywhere. And the issue about liberal arts education. I happen to be a firm believer of liberal arts education. This past year, there were 3 of us in the office who were sending their children to college the next year. In other words, they were working with the high school seniors about college applications and that sort of thing. And I was the only one who said, I think my son will do well in a liberal arts college. Everybody else was like, why? I mean, what could he do with a liberal arts education? In other words, how much money can he earn? What kind of job stability? That kind of a thing. So that has become more of a theme. In a capitalistic society, it's very difficult to get away from this idea that capital, we call it a capitalistic society, capital basically is it. That, let's just call it what it is, money is the most important thing. And that's the overall theme. To get it, you better go to good college. To get it, to invest, you need to focus on the bottom line, the returns. Constant focus on all that. So the next slide probably is pretty self-explanatory. I just put a slide in, threw in the slide there, what capitalistic society is. You all know this, right? People and businesses invest capital for returns. All these bullet points here, it's very, very self-explanatory. I'm not going to go over each one of them. But the idea is that the pendulum swung to that side where role of capital is the most crucial thing that everybody should pay attention to. And in a society like this, I think some of these other values I talk about in the following slide can be not ignored, but valued less, which I think creates a slew of problems. So, things like human dignity, mutual respect, truth and justice, love and hope, compassion and acceptance, dreams and giving, these things, those colleagues of mine who wanted to send their kids to college for engineering, for computer science, for pre-medical coursework and that kind of thing, they would say, yeah, these things are important. We all know these things are important. But these things can be afforded if you can feed yourself and if you can actually do things that you want to do. And all required there for those things is money, capital. So, I think this calls for a practical balancing act of some sort. But to get there, we need to be aware of some reality, stark reality. I don't believe in a perfect balance in anything. I don't know if any of you watched the movie The Joy Luck Club. This came out in the 90s. I'm an old man. I don't know if it was in the movie. I usually get confused because I read the book and I don't know if it was in the movie too. But the story is about Chinese women, mothers and daughters. And one of the mother-daughter pair there, the daughter is living with an American, a Caucasian man. And when she comes to visit, she sees on the refrigerator a list of things, items. And she says, what is this? And the daughter explains that this is about our expenses, groceries and other things, all the. So what we do is, at the end of the month, we actually look at all this and reimburse each other so that our living expense is 50-50. And the mother looks at the list. She stares at it. And she says, this is all she says, you don't eat ice cream. She doesn't eat ice cream. Her daughter does not eat ice cream, but she still has to pay for half of that ice cream. And that's all she says. And that's where I get the idea that nothing in life is perfectly balanced. There's no such thing. We talk about work-life balance a lot in businesses today, and they do things like extend men paternity leave when they have when he and his wife have a baby. No longer maternity leave alone, but you can't have a perfect balance between work and life, especially. Don't let brown brothers hear I said this. We're encouraged to do these things, but employers still prefer that you focus a lot more on work, especially during working hours. Maybe even not then either, on the weekends too. So there's no such thing as a perfect work-life balance. We will try to approach it, but we can't get there. This might be a bit controversial too, but we talk about young people thinking about marriage. They talk about equal share of everything within the marriage, including family work. I don't think there's any such thing. Hopefully, you'll get there. The pendulum used to be so far in the man's favor. You can see statistics. Even if they're getting a bit better, it's still clear that women still do lion's shares of work in the homes. And so the idea is to get there. But I think, idealistically speaking, to reach that 50-50, it will take a lot of doing. But I think so the biggest conclusion I think I've drawn for myself is that we need to avoid the extreme in this and in other things as well. And this last line I made up here, I keep talking about it. In my books, I talk about it mostly in the columns. Love has to drive everything. And fairness is a good thing. We should strive toward it. But we cannot focus on fairness and sacrifice love. That's my message. And I thought that I would actually look at two specific examples of this balancing act that I'm talking about. First, at a personal level. So my experience, I joined J.P. Morgan and Company in 1994. And those of you who know something about American banking system know this concept of Glass-Steagall. Glass-Steagall was an act that passed in the 1930s to separate out investment banks from commercial banks. The idea was, if you are a commercial bank, you should not be allowed to play with the depositors' money in high-risk things. So hence we used to have the House of Morgan because of Glass-Steagall. J.P. Morgan, the commercial bank, and Morgan Stanley, the investment bank, were created. In the early 1990s, Glass-Steagall began to soften, and so J.P. Morgan and Company was interested in becoming an investment bank. And they were making good headway there by the time I joined in 1994. So I sat next to a high-yield desk. There's a high-yield bond desk, and there was a fellow there who was what we call a rainmaker. I don't know. I mean, there were some rumors about how he was bringing in $100 million of revenue to the bank every year. And, he had a vile temper. People go approach and ask him a simple question. He would curse at them, and even giving them the answer, a lot of profanities there. I heard him, I should say, throw a computer monitor at somebody. Computer monitors back then were heavy. They're not these flat screen things. People could have gotten hurt doing that. But they did not fire him. They did not even, I don't think, chastise him, or because he was the rainmaker. That was the 1990s Wall Street. That doesn't fly anymore. I mean, Brown Brothers. What I was told about Brown Brothers before, coincidentally, J.P. Morgan was at 60 Wall. Brown Brothers was at 59 Wall Street. So before joining Brown Brothers, I asked my J.P. Morgan colleagues about Brown Brothers, and they said, well, it's the one place you don't have to worry about your wallet when you go in there. You know, Brown Brothers is a genteel place, has been a genteel place for a long time. I don't think there has ever been an employee like that at Brown Brothers. But even at J.P. Morgan, I spent 4 years there. They told me that if you want a friend around here, you better get a dog. And they were not joking. You know, the funny thing about that was that I was, in fact, traveling with a seeing eye dog back then. So I was the only one with a friend in the bank. Come on, that was supposed to be funny. I was the only one with a friend because, you know, they were seriously about money, and if you wanted a friend, you better get a dog. That was the message. But it's not like that anymore, even on Wall Street. People are a lot more polite, a lot more gentle, even a place like J.P. Morgan, I bet. You know, they have these probably employee sensitivity training like the rest of us, and they probably would not tolerate a computer monitor throwing high-yield trader, even if he makes $100 million a year for the bank. I think he would have been fired, not because that's the right thing to do, but more likely because they would have opened up the bank for a lawsuit that would cost them much more than $100 million a year. So that's where we are. And I think of all my nearly 30-year Wall Street experience, I have met a few people who are very, very capable, and they're very, very nice as well. I said here, there are a couple of people I met. One of them is still at Brown Brothers, with whom I would trust my huge winning lottery ticket. Let me explain what I mean by this. So when there's a huge jackpot, right, I usually buy some lottery tickets, just in case, right? This is a bad advertisement for Brown Brothers. I mean, one of the employees talking about lottery tickets. But being a blind person, I don't know what the numbers would be. I usually do quick picks, right? So I don't know what the numbers are. So let's say there's a announcement that there's a jackpot that was hit where I bought the ticket. I can trust this person not to lie to me. If I say, hey, is this ticket I'm holding, does it have winning numbers? I would trust him to tell me the truth, even if that ticket is a winner and there's no name written on it, so that he can take it. I'll throw it out for you, right? I know at least one person like that at Brown Brothers, even now. As a matter of fact, yesterday, this friend of mine and I took a little walk, because if you know, Powerball is at $1.2 billion. I thought we'll just buy some tickets. And I still have that ticket. I haven't checked whether somebody won. If somebody won, if that was in New York City, so you might be looking at a millionaire who doesn't know he's a millionaire yet. So I'll show that to my wife tonight, see if the ticket has winning numbers. The point here is it's very difficult to mix a person who is very able, who is very good. So the balance that I talk about here is choose to be good, strive to be able. Because ability, I think, is something you can really work hard at. Being good is a choice you can make. That's the way I think about things. The second practical example I want to talk about is investing. Now, this is, KIC sponsored event, so we talk about investing. When I first started investing, I was in graduate school, and I was told that there are two styles of investing: growth and value. Growth is about companies that are growing very, very quickly, and so you basically go along with the momentum of the business, if not momentum of the trading activities. So you basically go along and try to find the entry points and exit points. Try to get in there just in time, get out just before everything goes down. That's the growth investing style. Now, value opportunities, of course, is maybe less exciting, but we talk about things like businesses that generate cash and how well the company allocates that capital. So that might be a bit boring, but that's sort of like a divide. Some people are forever growth stock pickers. Other people are forever value stock pickers. They rely on things like dividend yield. They talk about things like share buybacks and that kind of stuff. The balancing act here is that, again, you should avoid limiting investments into one of these styles. I mean, there are a lot of additional styles that have been suggested over the years. Technical, or there's GARP, growth at reasonable price, all these kind of things. I think these are just a way to think about investing. You should not subscribe to any of these. So avoid limiting yourself to investment styles like people talk about. Now, then the natural question might be, what do you suggest? Avoid these styles. Then what do you do? Well, I'll tell you what I do. All right. And this is very similar to what Brown Brothers does, but you didn't hear that from me. So the first thing I think is to narrow opportunity set. Now here I said narrow opportunity set to durable companies, but that's obvious, right? I mean, you don't want to invest in a company that's could go bankrupt or get caught in a particular trend and go out of business, right? I mean, there was a company that used to advocate for things like particular diet styles or that kind of thing, and you don't want to invest in companies like that because that diet style might go out of fashion and that company has issues. Durability is one thing, but another thing that you should do to narrow down your opportunity set is what you know best. What your capability is. If you studied, for example, medicine or pharmacology, that kind of a thing, pharmaceutical companies might be an interesting subset of your opportunity set. If you are a very fashion-conscious person, and you know what's the hottest thing, and you know where the trend is going, these companies that like LVMH. I'm not supposed to talk about companies. Companies that do consumer goods, that might be a part of your opportunity set. You cannot be an expert in everything. You should have some edge in terms of your experience, your knowledge set about industries or companies that you will invest in. So narrow down the companies that you can invest in. For most people, list of such companies in the US, for example, cannot be over 100. That should be the only companies you should look at, even get started about investing in the ideas. That just happens to be what Brown Brothers always says too. We don't do everything, but what we do, a small number of things, we do very well. And then once you have established an opportunity set of companies, you should get to know them really well. We're not at a point of looking at stocks or bonds yet. Let's talk about those industries, those companies. Get to know them. When high school students or university students come to me and say, I want to do what you do. What should I study? I said, well, what I do is investing. Since when have you started reading the Wall Street Journal? Most of people will say, I don't think I've ever read the Wall Street Journal. I'm like, I thought you said you were interested in investing. So you should get to know these industries and get to know the companies really well. So that when somebody says, company ABC, you can rattle out what they do, what their advantages are, what their track record has been, that kind of a thing. You should get to know these companies really well. And then what you do is, this is the hard part. Intelligence is one thing. Patience is what makes a social investor into a great investor. And that is, you have to wait until the securities of companies that you would like to invest in reaches a certain level. And the way I talk about it is I don't give you particular multiples. I don't say, DCF has to work this way. I don't do any of that. In your mind, as an investor who thinks about risk, what you need to think about is margin of safety. Again, margin of safety for somebody could be, maybe 20% less than the intrinsic value of a company. Or somebody could be 30 or 40 or even 15. That's not the issue. The issue is the margin of safety that you're comfortable with, that you can live with if the stock or the bonds drop or the yields go up. And that's when you pull the trigger, as we say, on Wall Street and put in a buy order. So this is how I would summarize it. Invest in value securities of durable companies that you understand really well. So that's the way I think about balanced approach to investing. Now, these other differences we can talk about, but these are, everybody can talk about it. Liberal versus conservative. You talk about religious differences among the religious people, or even religious versus secular. And again, here's another idea that has been sort of touted by some people. Capitalistic is one thing. I told you, I started this book idea about living a balanced life in a capitalist society. I have concluded that you can't actually live a balanced life in a capitalist society, because capitalistic society is not balanced in itself. So these kind of differences, I think we need to be aware of them. We need to be able to think about who we are and say, well, I'm not neither here or there at the extreme. But I think for these issues, I think I'm more liberal than conservative. For those other issues, I'm more conservative than liberal. For example, things that confused me about American political divide is that if you're one, you have to accept the set of values that particular side espouses. And that is not so. That should not be so. This is not our purpose should not be to have a perfectly divided country or society. So you can actually look at individual values. For example, on the side of gun control, for example, I come down on reasonable gun control laws, despite the fact that we have a constitutional amendment that seems to grant an individual a right to bear arms, which is absolute in some people's views. Do you know that me, a blind person, can walk into any gun store and buy one? And in the state of Texas, I can go hunting by myself. The question, of course, is, good Lord, I can go hunting by myself, but if I shot something, how will I know if I hit it? And even if I hit it, how will I know where to go get it? So you can be reasonable about things like this. And for yourself, you don't have to care about every value either, by the way. You can come up with value system of your own. And this is where I talk about my own life's balance. The way I look up, think about things is that I prioritize based on the important things to me. You know, people talk about fairness, and I talk about, well, I don't know about fairness, but I want to be focusing on lessening unfairness. This is where the idea of yana comes from. You know, I told you that, I guess I didn't tell you. If you read the book or you know, I was raised by my biological parents for 15 years. And then since then, my American parents raised me. So I have two full sets of families that are both supportive and loving. When I found out that at the time in 2008, that there were 20,000 kids in South Korea, you know, a modern country, economically sound country, 20,000 kids who grow up in orphanages. I'm like, orphanages? I thought orphanages were for like during the times of war and poverty in Korea. 20,000 kids. Oh my gosh, I have two sets of families. These kids have none. I was thinking, that's unfair. And the reason why I co-founded Yana Ministry and still chair its board of directors is because of that. I need to do something to lessen that unfairness. For me, another thing, of course, is matter of faith. I became a Christian just before I came to the US. It was a desperate measure. I didn't know what else to do. Going to America, a strange place, a different country, no English. I was terrified by it. Although I couldn't not do it because the opportunity was so extraordinary. So I became a Christian back then. I thought it would be a way to handle the challenges that were coming up. But of all the religious values that I was taught as a Christian, self-control is a big thing. It's very difficult. Your instinct tells you you should care about yourself first. Your instinct tells you that your family is the most important. Your instinct tells you that you should defend your children at all costs. But that's not right. Christian teaching is not that me first, my family first. The Christian doctrine talks about justice. So others before me is a forever struggle for me. But that's because it's a value that I consider important, and I still work on it. Family, of course, is another important value in my priority set. I was very afraid. My first book talks about this. I was very afraid of being alone. Studying, job, I think there was something I could do, but finding a spouse, raising a loving family, and children that could, in fact, replicate that family model of valuing each other and loving each other and raising each other and that kind of a thing. I thought that was very difficult as a blind person. I was told when I was a kid that, well, if there's no woman willing to marry you, we'll just find you someone. You know, as if they were saying they'll pay somebody to be my wife, that kind of a thing. So family is very important to me. Lifelong, loving partnerships. And the purpose of that is loving each other. That's the first thing. You know, people talk about why do people get married? Well, people get married for a number of different things. I mean, I've heard some people talk about for tax reasons. I don't know what they're talking about. Tax reasons? I think it's worse when you get married, tax reasons. But loving each other, that's the, the prime objective of marriage. And if the second important directive that I think as a married couple is to raise children so that they can do the same. It's the replication idea. And that's what we at Yana Ministry try to do. These kids who are abandoned by their parents in early life, they have very great deal of mistrust about adults, about family. And we want to raise them. We want to help them to get to the point where they can actually be in loving relationships with spouses and children. As far as work goes, again, Brown Brothers folks, close your ears. Work for me is a way of earning the means for the needs and wants of yourself, your family, and the people you care about. So for me, that is my family, Yana Ministry, and some other charitable pursuits that others are doing. And as far as the meaning goes in my life, I think that's the important thing. If you're interested in secure, somewhat secure, lucrative jobs, Wall Street is a good option for you. But I don't know how many people who work on Wall Street, in fact, draw meaning from their work, or enjoyment for that matter. So what I decided to do was to focus on things like Yana Ministry, and I've always enjoyed writing. So writing is something I have been doing all my life since I won that essay contest in 6th grade. I was kind of hot about that, but it took a long time to publish the first book. I was almost 50 when the first book came out. So for me, the driving force in my life is this, that my life is not random, or it just happened. I believe that my life has a purpose. And because I believe in God, that purpose comes from Him, or purposes for that matter. And so that's the driving force. That, people talk about investing for retirement. And I say, well, that's a good thing. I think you should be prepared for your retirement monetarily. But that is so like your prime goal. How sad is that? You're basically working all your life so that you can have a comfortable retirement. I think, life should be about a lot more than that. So in conclusion, my wife was asking me, are you going to tell a lot of jokes? Will there be a lot of laughter? Very obvious. I guess I haven't done a good job about that. The conclusion is this: perfect life, perfect balance is impossible in a capitalistic society. And I think for a good, balanced life, I want to decide on the meaning and purpose, which I did. I told you about them. And narrow down what I can do, what can be done. I have this big dream about establishing a school for abandoned children in Korea, but that's just a big dream. But I said to somebody recently that I would be happy if by the time I die, the conditions are set so that such a school, in fact, is possible in Korea for these children. And the other thing that I would like to look back and say I was somewhat successful is that I was always able to acknowledge differences and respect the differences. But I also like to say that I maintained my own independent values. And, the way I would define that my life was a success is that toward the end of it, I would look back and say, well, I think I was able to fulfill at least one purpose, even if it was not fully, even if it was a somewhat, I was able to fulfill it. I would call that a success. And that's sort of the way I define what's important today. Because I like that idea of start with end in mind and continue with your end goal in mind. And that's what I try to do every day. Okay. Geez, not that many laughters. I'm really kind of sad about this.
All right,
But
thank you.
that's the prepared
right.
portion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shin, for sharing your valuable thoughts on life and investing. And due to time constraint, I think we could have one or two questions from the audience. If you have any questions, you could ask in Korean, English, whatever language you like. Yeah.
It's a too heavy a topic, maybe. You can ask me about anything.
Thank you very much. 한국말로 질문 드릴게요. 아까 아드님이 대학 가셨다고 했는데 궁금한 점이 liberal arts education을 강조하시면서 말씀하셨는데 현재 아드님께서 그쪽으로 가고 계신지 그리고 아드님의 어떤 그런 계획과 그런 진로가 지금 말씀하신 그런 생각하신 거랑 일치하는지 좀 궁금합니다.
Oh, thank you for the question. The question was about how I mentioned that I value liberal arts education, and I was hoping for liberal arts education for my son. So what is he doing? That kind of a thing. Well, actually, the answer might be anticlimactic here because he just started. In fact, he just started his freshman year at Skidmore College. It's a small liberal arts college in New York State here. But that's the thing. Let me just expand that for 1 second here. My daughter, Yejin, who went to college years before, she was a good student, so I thought she should go to medical school, and she said no. You can't tell these kids anything anymore. Said, no, that's too long, too much studying, and you likely will have a debt when you get started. I said, what do you want to do? Said, well, tell me something that is short and I can get good income and stable. And I said, gee, Wall Street, how does that grab you? She said, no, what you do is too boring. I don't want to do that. So she decided to become a nurse. So she's a nursing student at Case Western. And she, in fact, just started her job at the Cleveland Clinic at the cardiac ICU. So she says, 4 years of education, I'm done. I have a license. I have a job. It'll be fairly good living. That's all she wanted. So that's fine. Okay. Liberal arts education, my son, he's a dreamer. He wants to make film. He is into drawing. He's into stories. He's into music. You can ask him, what do you think about movie X? He will tell you song and verse from script to acting to music to cinematography. He's there. He's a dreamer. So that's why I said, well, okay, you can go to a liberal arts college and study something, but let's not do film right away anyway. Do you know that film master's program at Columbia cost $200,000? And these kids come out with a master's degree, go to LA, get a PA's job at $30,000 a year? The math doesn't work, right? So I said, let's not do film right away. If you want to do film for real, you can study in graduate school or you can do work and learn from work. I said, okay. So if not film, what do you want to study? He says, okay, maybe philosophy. I'm like, philosophy? All right. I didn't think that was bad because philosophy, at least he will learn to think, reason, learn how the world works, and be able to present his ideas well in written form, in oral form. So I said, well, okay, that's a good balanced education. Besides, one of our Brown Brothers partners studied philosophy, and he didn't do anything else. Undergraduate philosophy degree, he, went to Wall Street, became a BBH partner. I figured that's okay. So that's what he's doing. And he's actually spending his first semester in London, and he's loving it. London, museums, theaters. I often ask him, like, what are you doing tonight? He says, I'm at the Globe Theater again, another Shakespeare play. Shakespeare play? But that's the kind of kid he is. He loves to think. My daughter never asked me for something like this. My son would say, Appa, I read this book. I think you will like it. The one I remember, it was a book about free will. I read this book this is not part of the high school curriculum either. So he said, why don't you read it too? And we'll talk about it. One Saturday, I remember, I got roped into this. We talked 3 hours about free will. And at the end, I said, all right, I think you win. You're right. And I just had to end it. That's what this young man is like. I think he'll become a waiter somewhere before he actually gets into a real profession. But yeah, that's what he's doing. And I think for him, liberal arts education works. But I'll say one more thing about liberal arts education. Today, the rise of AI in particular calls for people who are independent thinkers. Do you know how much fun I have with ChatGPT? It's great. Because I ask questions about a subject matter I know everything about. And it's always wrong. And I'll point it out. I say, no, that's not right. And ChatGPT is really good because it comes right back to you and says, I'm sorry, you're right, I was wrong about that. So in a world like that, and the way ChatGPT phrases things makes it sound like he really knows what he's talking about. It's like your friend who doesn't know a heck of a lot, but who talks really well. It's like that. In a world like that, an independent thinking is going to be the most important value, important capability. So for that, I think I recommend, again, liberal arts education.
Thank you very much for your response. I just had to make one comment. You mentioned earlier about your early career at JP Morgan, and I've been at JP Morgan for about 13 years now.
Yes.
And I can
nicer place?
Yes, I can confirm that in the 13 years I've been here, I've never heard of anyone throwing monitors, at least as far as my knowledge.
Okay, I guess just one more question. Okay, I guess everyone is hungry. So thank you very much, Mr. Shin, today again. So with big applause. And I think the lunch is ready on the back. I heard the kimbap is very popular nowadays in New York City, so we prepared kimbap. So please enjoy your lunch, and I think it will be very good to network with each other as well. Okay, so thank you.